Okay, now welcome back, everyone. Our next guest, Chris, is going to be talking about his games and that he's been working on. It's a very interesting kind of project that he's been doing, and I'm sure everyone else will find this, enlightening. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I feel welcome.
Yeah. So, Chris, tell me about yourself, and what are you doing?
Oh, well, I've always been into creating games. Ever since I was a kid, thinking about how mechanics work and all that kind of stuff. I actually had a meeting with a friend last year that I used to go to primary school with, and he said, "Oh, remember those games that we used to make up, and we used to play them?" And I was just left scratching my head, going, "I'm not sure." And he told me about this Micro Machines game where we had to go to work and make money in order to pay mortgage or something like that. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I only have very vague memories of this, but apparently he has quite vivid ones." And yeah, so I don't know. I've always had a bit of a creative spark, and I enjoy bringing what I have inside out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what made you get into games development?
Well, I guess I've always been a bit of a nerd. I liked the whole games thing. Always liked playing some computer games when I was a teenager, and I went to university and joined a role-playing group, and I learned a lot more about role-playing games and that sort of thing during then. And they used to have these camps that used to go to where you go there for 3 days, and there'd be a few shenanigans, but a lot of board games as well.
Yeah.
So I was always very interested in all the board games that they used to bring, because I had never seen any of these modern board games. And now this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, Monopoly's a board game," that sort of thing. And not hanging any crap on Monopoly or anything, but yeah, there was a lot more games out there than I realized, and they were lots of fun. So I don't know, I built up a bit of a collection since then, and that's also got the creative process going.
Okay, so I know that you've got some imagery and stuff to kind of show. So you want to share some of that with us?
Sure. Yeah. All right. Just bring up this. So I'm a little bit new to Zoom, so
yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. So we'll add to the anticipation. Here we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right. So start from beginning. There we go. Okay. There we go. This is the logo that we've been using on Kickstarter. That we'll be using on Kickstarter, and the one that we'll be using at the moment on the Facebook page. So yeah, the game itself, Fractured Empire, or Crayne Fractured Empire, is a high fantasy deck building game between 1 and 6 players. It is set in the world of Crayne, which is something that I use. Is a setting that I've been using in my personal role-playing games for nearly 20 years. So there's a lot of background in there. This game itself has been play tested for about 4.5 years, mostly to ensure balancing, and of course wanting to make sure that every faction itself is unique. There comes with over 100 unique illustrations. We spend a lot on art. We love our art and supporting our artists. And the game itself was published with, at this current time, 225 cards in the base set. Oh, there we go. We love our artists. We're supporting them. There are 6 artists that are working with this project at the moment, not including the designer, who is an artist as well. So yeah, he would be there as well. More than 100 unique pieces. At the moment, I think we're up to 109 pieces. Yeah, we're just working more on it because at the moment COVID is happening, and we decided to delay the Kickstarter for a while. And in that period of time, we just decided to add more art to the game, just because why not?
Yeah.
Now, the wonderful people at Maple University, which is here in Melbourne, they did a great job at putting together a video
Okay.
that explains basically how it runs down, and that's a 5-minute video that we want to show it at the end or something like that.
Well, let's just try and see if we can go back and just give it a quick try, and if it's a bit laggy, we can show that after the interview.
All right, sure. I will share something else then. There we go. Share. Let's see. That one. Here we go.
Oh, I've got a commercial. Okay, need some volume. Can't hear it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I figured out how to do this yesterday.
Yeah.
Got to share it with sound. Perhaps it's best just to show it at the end.
Yep, sure. We can do that. We can do that. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint slide.
Can you see that?
Not yet. Not yet.
How about now?
Not yet.
All right. How about now?
I think it's about to come. Yep, we're back. We're back.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
fantastic. The wonders of live interviews.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. People always ask what the differences is because there's a lot of what do you call it, deck building games out there. Crayne features a simultaneous play. So what happens is you play cards at the same time. You reveal card from your hand. Everyone plays them face down and reveals them at the same time. And this happens 5 times, and then you move on to the next round. There is a unique faction buying element where the amount of cards in your discard pile actually helps you purchase cards in the market. So they give you discounts. Each faction also has its unique style of play. Each card has the ability to combo with other cards in the same faction. And so if you make good choices, you can dominate, we'll say. You also play with a different randomized set of factions each game so that no 2 games would be the same. There are 8 factions in total, and depending on the number of players you have is the number of factions you have in. And I believe in a 2-player game, there would be 8 choose for 70 different combinations of factions that you can have. So there's a lot of replayability there. There's single player and team play variants. So there's a 2v2, 3v3, and a 2v2v2 setting. You only ever affect your neighbors. So it stops like a bullying sort of mechanic because you're interacting with the people next to you, and the other people are playing left alone. So if there's 4 or more players in the game, you only really have to look at who's sitting next to you at the time in order to make your decisions. So it keeps the gameplay moving without having to wait between turns. And of course, we also, at different lengths of games, we have different influence totals. Influence is like your health points in the game. So yeah. How to play? The players in the game are known as lords, and it plays in rounds until all but 1 lord is eliminated. Each round is broken down into the 4 phases. It's the assembly phase, the attack phase, revenue phase, and the cleanup phase. During the assembly phase, as I was saying before, you play simultaneously cards 1 card face down until you're all ready. Then you reveal the card and resolve any effects, and then you replenish your hand back up to 3. and you repeat the cycle until it's been done 5 times. Strongholds are things that you can place between you as a defensive object, between you and your opponents. Most of the time you'll have 5 cards in front of you, but you can have more or less depending on the text that's written on the cards. And after the assembly phase, you move on to the attack phase, where you basically calculate how much attack power you have and you deal this damage to your neighbors. Likewise, you receive damage from both your neighbors combined, and the amount of defenses that you have block some of that damage. Any lords reduced to 0 in this phase are eliminated from the game. That only happens at the end of the game, so people will be in a close situation by the time the game finishes, and all the annihilations come really quickly, so you're not sitting around. After that's the revenue phase. You take turns in purchasing new cards for your deck. People who have been deck building will be familiar with this concept. As I said before, the market will be a mixture of different cards because not every faction is available in every game, so it's always going to be a bit of a different blend of different things there. What you have to do is purchase the amount of revenue you have, and each card has a cost in the corner that shows how much is required to purchase that card. However, because of the discount strategy that you have, you can receive discounts on cards that are in the discard pile. So each card that you have of one particular faction reduces the costs of that same faction. So this gives a bit of a push and pull mechanic where you can push your luck a bit longer and try to wait for your discard pile to be full whilst getting big discounts at the risk of someone else buying the card that you want. Also, if you have to shuffle your discard pile back into your deck, all of these discounts are removed until the discard pile builds up again. And there's also some neutral options to purchase from the market that are always available. And then there's the cleanup phase, which is basically when you prepare for the next round. As I mentioned earlier, the game ends when all but one lord is eliminated, and it's the one who has the most influence left that wins. As we were saying, that it's going to be a Kickstarter thing, so we're going to be adding some extras to the game depending on how well the Kickstarter does. We're already working on these things, so they'll we're adding more powerful cards, so every faction will have a kind of boss creature. There's going to be hero cards and tokens. This is one of the newest elements to the game. It's more for aesthetics things. It's something that we added because COVID pushed the goals back. So we decided, yeah, why not just put more art in the game, and this way people can get a little token that sits in front of them that identifies who they are, so that tracking their influence is a lot easier. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 1 to 6 player game, so you can play a solo game variant where you've got an automated opponent. And one thing that we're going to stretch goal for this is for them to be not just a game, but have missions as well, where your goal isn't necessarily to eliminate your opponent, but ally with the said opponent by building certain card combinations and making so that so there's a lot more flavor in the single player. All right. I just go a little bit into the factions, I guess. I'm not going to read all of this out, but every faction has its strengths and weaknesses. The Knights of Calamus, they're much stronger defenders and good at gaining influence. You've got the Elves of Spring Lake, good at cycling through cards. So if you don't like a card in your hand, you can discard it. And that also means that you can also play with your discard pile and get more discounts and that sort of thing. The Mages are all about choices. A lot of the cards have different choices. You can choose attack, defense, or other mechanics that are interesting. Dwarves are very defensive and have lots of strongholds, but they also have lots of revenue, so they can purchase bigger cards from other factions to help them out as well. The Greenskins are good at tearing down walls and also have a swarming mechanic, and they also have this destroy the market mechanic. Malrathian's chosen are our kind of dark elves. The deep elves in my system is what they're called, and they focus on messing with your opponents, we'll say. So you can mess with their discounts, their discard piles, you can mess with their hands and that sort of thing. Demons of the Rift are strong attackers, and they also focus on the removal of cards that you don't want anymore, called sacrificing. And the undead faction, Servants of the Baron, focus on getting cards that you normally can't get. So in the game there's a pit. It's where things go when they get sacrificed, and these guys can actually dip in there and take some things from there. Play testing for Crayne, like I said, it's been happening for 4.5 years, and it's had many prototypes over the years. We got an early one, a middle one in the middle down the bottom there, you can see, and the ones on the left and the right are a bit more recent, using the actual art that we've put together. You see some people playing the game there in the corner. Guess I should mention a bit of marketing. We do have a Facebook group.
Yep.
It does have 3,500 followers at the moment. We placed in the top 3 for TGDA prototype competition last year.
Okay.
It's just a little thing that they put together every year, and they get hundreds of submissions. And we were happy enough to get in the top 3. That was really good. And we've been seen at some conventions like PAX, as well as local game shops and other gatherings. You can see a picture of me in the corner there with my with my big banner that I got, looking almighty proud of it.
That's great. One thing I want to ask you before you kind of progress on to the future and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
When you first, I asked this of everyone, when you first, the first time a box came back from the printers and there's your finished product ready to go out to market, how did that make you feel?
Well, it hasn't happened yet with Crayne, because all of our prototypes have been printed at the local shops.
Yeah.
And but it did happen with a previous product that I had. I published a book on role-playing a couple of years ago, and this big, I think it was 316-page, fully illustrated thing. When that first came in the post, I just did a little dance.
See, I always find that very interesting, and like I always ask everyone, going, "How'd you feel?" And like everyone's like, "Oh, it was just so amazing and so exciting," and that's the thing. And I see that with many different genres when something is, it's come back from a printers, or it's been 3D printed, or it's or it's been released on an app store or anything else, and it's like, "Oh, it's real now. It's real."
Yeah, that is it. It's one thing for it to exist in virtual space, even if it exists in a PDF version.
Yeah.
But it's another thing when you're literally holding it. It's something else entirely.
Yeah. Now, some of your team, that your illustrators and everyone else, are they like many projects we see these days, where you've got someone who's maybe in Poland and someone else is in Colombia, and another one's in Brazil, and another one's in Singapore?
Yeah, sure.
Is that?
That is the case, yeah. I have an artist that lives in Brazil. I've got an artist that live in the US, and also in various places in Europe. For this particular project, I had a few more artists for the book that I had. And I sourced them from many places. This time around, I actually had people source me. Because they had seen the book and they'd seen stuff that I put up on DeviantArt of other people's, obviously I tagged them in it and all that kind of stuff. But one of the people that originally approached me was like, "Do you have any more work coming up?" I'm like, "Well, actually, I've got this big project coming up with over 100 illustrations. Do you know anyone that would be interested in doing that?" And so he started bringing on friends of his that he studies with. So a lot of the people from this project are actually from the US, and they all kind of studied together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'll let you continue with the presentation. Yeah.
Okay. Future for Crayne. I get a bit carried away. after a couple of years of playtesting, I'd already started thinking of new ideas for new factions, and I actually have at least 9 more factions planned with different ideas. Not all the playtesting is complete on them though, but yeah, so there's definitely room for expansion in this project. I've got lots of ideas that need more playtesting. I've got prototypes written up. People have already started playing them, but in the last year I've been concentrating more on finalizing this one. So I've been keeping the basics. So in those expansions, of course, they include factions that are planned. Also, new exciting game modes, like being able to steal the current Lord card by using your attack power. More single-player missions. So we've got several missions at the moment, but the more time we get to work on it, the more missions will come out. And of course, more hero cards, since it's just something you can add at any point in time. You can always add more tokens so that someone goes, oh, I like that one, I'll be that person today. And a lot of people have mentioned to me that I should make it an online game. It's not really my area of expertise, but I heard about Tabletop Simulator last week for the first time. I know I'm a bit slow. And I started putting together a little prototype up there. So I've got a few days off now since I work weekends and night shifts. So the next few days I'll probably be working on that a little bit, and we'll see if I can get a version running that works.
Okay.
It would be interesting, because that would mean that I can play test it with people overseas as well, without them having to create a print and play version. I guess people usually ask the question of, is it going to be completed? We're currently finalizing the last of the illustrations. We actually finalized them already, but because COVID hit, I decided to put more in. So we're doing some extra ones as we speak. We've chosen someone to print with, and we're definitely well within our budget. And of course, we've got the Kickstarter coming up soon, and that's probably the most important message, is to sign up to that if you are interested at all in the project, because this lets you know at the moment that it releases, and then you'll be able to see a lot more of the art. You'll be able to see the video that we've got for it, and all of that put together.
Right.
Do I have any more? No, that's it. That's the thank you slide. This is just one of the cards. It's one of my favorite cards. It's got the cut marks in it and everything like that. So that's the kind of thing that we expect it to look like.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, well,
trimming.
Yeah, for those of you who are, are watching the stream, or you're watching this delayed footage of this on YouTube several weeks later after CGF, we're going to have all these links available. So if you want to check out, the Facebook links, the Kickstarter links, the YouTubes, all that sort of stuff, we're going to have all that there, so you can follow that sort of thing up. So one thing I was going to ask you is, like, you put in a lot of time in this. For this particular game, what sort of time frame are we looking at from kind of original kind of thinking about it to potentially getting it out there to market? What sort of time frame are we looking at?
Well, it depends on how much of a perfectionist you are, really, I guess. This particular game I've been thinking about for, well, just over 4.5 years, more like 5 years. When I get an idea and I run with it, eventually, if it manages to spill out from my head into paper, I usually kind of obsess over it for the next week until I can get a final version, and I can say, okay, if we can find a way to print this out, we can start playtesting it. So it really depends on your creative process. I mean, I've got a day job. I work in healthcare as an ambulance person. So, I mean, that hasn't stopped. We're still doing that, and that's really busy at the moment. But it depends on what your expertise is as well. Some people are a jack of all trades and can do all the art and all of the design work. I'm not one of those. I can design the mechanics and things and organize playtesting, but when it comes to the visual design elements, I've got an idea in mind of what I want, but other people out there have better ideas. So I usually go with that. but in this case, 4.5 years is about the time frame. It could have been ready much sooner if it was something I did full time.
Yeah. So,
but it's not.
Yeah, what I was going to ask is that, do you find with working with, like, you've already kind of, talking about like 4.5 years, do you find that with making these sort of projects, that you've become, or you may have always been, have to show a lot of patience and kind of go, okay, this is going to take a fair amount of time, and you work on, bits and pieces where you can. And it's not like with some people go, oh, I'm going to make this and it's going to be done in a month, which is like, and then they get frustrated because they're not making much headway.
A lot of people, I think everyone has that thing where they don't complete something because it's taking too long, and their mind is moving on to the next project. And yes, I certainly do have to fight that. It has been frustrating, this project, in a way, because everything just takes a long time. You're always waiting for the art to come in from the artists. You're waiting to approve things. You're waiting for designs to come in. You're waiting for that Wednesday evening when you can play test these new rules that you've created, or these balancing changes that you've made. There's a lot of waiting, and that's just part of the journey, I guess.
Yeah. And this is another thing that I always ask, is that when you were maybe just say 14 or 15, would you expected it right now that you'd be doing this, it's making these sort of games or working on these sort of projects?
My parents probably did.
Yeah.
Because they would have seen me growing up making things. But personally, no, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was 14 or 15. Certainly didn't envision me doing something like this. But maybe making computer games or something. But,
yeah, that's a common thing I ask, because usually the person who's creating it or developing it at that age doesn't see it. That, oh, this could be something that I'm doing in the future, or but everyone else around them going, oh, look, no, they're going to go into this. They can clearly see it because they're observing from,
I see, yeah,
independently. So, yeah. Okay. Well, this is something I always ask of everyone I interview is, what's your, favorite movie and favorite TV show, and, games you might be playing at the moment, as in video games.
Video games. I was always a fan of the Heroes of Might and Magic series. I think a lot of that has come through in this particular project. So I hope I've made my own unique element in this. But I did get a bit of inspiration from that. That's one of the things about creative process, is that you usually find something that you like, and then you kind of mimic it and then change it to make it yours. You might splice two things together and see how it works. Definitely a fan of the Heroes of Might and Magic series.
Okay. And movies, TV?
Movies, TV.
Yeah. What do you like? What do you like to watch?
I like ones that make you think.
Yeah.
And ones that are very creative. I don't like being led by the nose and being a bit dumb, There's a series that I watched a few months ago called Dark. And it's a German one, and it is a complete mind bender. It's a bit about time travel and all this kind of stuff, and so there's really not a simple explanation as to what it is. It's just it makes your head twist, and I definitely like that.
Well, Chris, I'd like to say on behalf of TGF and everyone else that's viewing, thank you very much for your time. It's been very interesting listening to you talk about, this project, what you were doing, how it gets put together, the whole Kickstarter project, and your insights into many different things. I'd like to say thank you very much. For everyone who's watching this through the TGF Tech Games Fest New Game Plus TV Twitch stream, we are going to have all of Chris's links available from Kickstarter to videos and whatnot. We're going to have that on our social media as well. And if you're watching this at a later date via YouTube, we will have all that information in the description. So thank you very much, Chris, for sharing your time.
Thank you, Andrew. And sorry once again for my camera cutting out at the start of the interview. before.
That's fine.
I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got to see a lot of your all your project work, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.